there is a certain loyalty to, a lot of groups will have people who just like them, pretty much just them. And then there is the gospel music fan who will like anyone who will perform a song anywhere near right, you know, and that's the kind I like.
The stone is rolled back, the tomb is empty, to sit at the Father's side.
There is a feeling there that I don't think exists in the other kind of music. I contend, I think it's true, that the only difference between gospel music and any other kind is the message and the words.
I am riding at the dead my after fighting, soon I'll reach my home in heaven by and by. When the truth is also near me, I have eyes but here to cheer me. I am riding in the sky.
When people enjoy what they see and they are blessed by what they feel and see, and lives are changed because of our music, then that's my favorite moment.
I'm walking on the highway with my Lord, my name is written down in the courts above. It's shout time in heaven, oh yes, it's shout time.
The beat is important, the music is important, but our lyrics is what's the most important, you know? And that's what all of our fans respond to, is our lyrics, because we're singing about him and not about ourselves, you know.
Oh, what a Savior. Oh, hallelujah.
I think the music has affected more Americans than academics, you know, just a few years ago, and perhaps most academics today would even dream of.
The music, Southern gospel music, has a rich history that begins with the earliest colonists to reach the American shores. Along with their hopes and dreams for a better life in the New World, they brought music. In the 19th century, there was a great spiritual transformation in America, known in the South as the Great Revival, led in part by evangelist Dwight Lyman Moody. A major part of the Great Revival was a general loosening of attitudes, allowing more popular forms of music to be incorporated in religious songs. The most well-known of the early religious music is called Sacred Harp, which featured a four-note system. But after the Civil War, the music, like so many other things, changed. A big part of that change was due to two soldiers from different sides of the great conflict. Aldine Kiefer was a Confederate soldier and a prisoner of war, who, legend has it, was visited in prison by his friend and Union soldier Ephraim Rubush to seek his release. After the war, Rubush and Kiefer formed a music publishing business. Together, they took the various forms of the new seven-note shape note systems and simplified them into one coherent system.
Beginning in the 1870s, they started a music company. Involved a school. Music schools were called normals. And they started the Rubush Kiefer Normal School. They started Musical Million, which was a magazine that was published on into the early years of the 20th century.
The Rubush Kiefer Normal School taught music using what are called shape notes, as opposed to round notes. Instead of using the position of the note on the musical clef to determine the note, as in formal music, shape notes used a different shape for each note, which made it easier to read the music and faster to learn a new song.
Somebody like Kiefer really believed that if you could do something to make music easier for the common man to learn and to read and to enjoy, then that's what you should do.
One of the students of the Rubush Kiefer system who believed as they did that music was special and should be sung and enjoyed by everyone was James D. Vaughn. In the days before radio, before the phonograph, new music was introduced by songbooks. Vaughn published his first book of songs called Gospel Chimes in 1900. What set Vaughn apart was his inspiration to create gospel music quartets to travel and sing and sell his songbooks. Vaughn paid all the expenses and provided the quartet with a car.
Vaughn sold somewhere around 30,000 songbooks the year before he started the quartet, and that would be 1909. The year after the quartet, his sales were over 60,000, so they had almost doubled. And by 1912, less than 3 years after founding the quartet, it was up over 85,000. So, as a businessman, Vaughn took a gamble, but it was one which paid off, and he very quickly realized that whatever expense it took, to keep the quartet on the road, it was worth it.
The first quartet was so successful that Vaughn created more quartets. By the mid-1920s, there were 16 Vaughn quartets on the road full-time, singing gospel music, teaching shape notes, and selling songbooks. Gospel music's modern history had begun as the quartets and their songbook selling spread the music nationwide. The history of Southern gospel music will continue in a moment here on TNN. You're watching Just of Southern Gospel Music here on TNN. By the 1920s, James D. Vaughn found his songbooks and music were becoming enormously popular. He created a record company and in 1922 launched WOAN, the first radio station in Tennessee. Ever the entrepreneur, Vaughn also sold radios to be used to receive his gospel broadcasts. Vaughn established regional offices throughout the South, including one in Texas, managed by one of his most dynamic students, V.O. Stamps. In 1924, V.O. Stamps left Vaughn and opened the Stamps Music Company. Several years later, J.R. Baxter Jr. bought into the business. They renamed it the Stamps Baxter Music Company and set up headquarters in Dallas, Texas.
Within just a few years, they were duplicating all of the things that he had learned from Vaughn. Their own music school, their own magazine, which started in 1927, called Gospel Music News.
Following the Vaughn model, the Stamps Baxter Company created professional quartets to travel, sing, and sell songbooks. The first was led by V.O.'s brother, Frank Stamps. Almost all quartets were male quartets, and almost all quartets were created by either Stamps Baxter or Vaughn. One exception to both rules was the Spear family, a rare mixed group with men and women singers. They were one of the early groups to make a living singing, teaching singing schools, and selling songbooks. The Spear family was led by G.T. Spear.
All of the Spears attended those schools. In fact, my father was a teacher. He raised a family going out and holding 2- and 3-week singing schools in local churches and communities over the South, and would send the money back home for groceries,
The Spear family is perhaps the longest continuously performing group in all of gospel music history, formed in 1921.
Oh, won't we be so happy in heaven when we all get there? We'll meet many friends and loved ones. Now won't that be joy beyond compare?
For the Spears, their fans span generations, just like the group does.
At our age, we have a lot of people that will come and say, my mother brought me to your concerts when I was 3 or 4 years old. You're all I've ever known. And so they are bringing their children. And so when things are kind of passed down like that, you have the older folks, and then you have the younger folks coming. So that kind of expands the crowd too.
They called in the animals 2 by 2, the ox, the camel, and the kangaroo. Then they called in Japheth, Shem, and Ham, and God began to flood the land. Well, he raised up our hands to the heavens on the high, knocked the sun and moon from the sky, shook the mountains, stirred the sea, pitched the winds to his chariot, the wheel when it stood on land. Stepped aboard, he cried that time wouldn't be no more. Well, I know it rained, you know it rained, hard rain, cold rain, it rained all day, rained all night, there was no land, no parasite. Rain, 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 rain. Rain, 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 children, rain all the time. Yes, you know it is. Oh, didn't it rain, didn't it rain?
One young hopeful who got his start many years ago at a singing school is James Blackwood.
That was the old days. And I've attended my first singing school, it's called, when I was 10 years old. Learned the do-re-mi's and how to sight read and how to sing. My brother Doyle and I attended this 10-night singing school at a little church near our home. Before it was over, the man asked us, teaching school asked us if we'd like to sing in a quartet with him. Oh, yes, fine. So he said, I'll sing lead. James, you sing alto. My voice had not changed. My brother would sing baritone. He said, I know where I can get a bass singer. That was my first quartet when I was 10 years old.
By 1934, James and his brothers formed the Blackwood Brothers Quartet and went to work for the Stamps Baxter Music Company.
We sold songbooks. In fact, that was a large part of our income, selling the Stamps Baxter songbooks. We went to singing conventions, all-day singings, and sold the Stamps Baxter songbooks. And that was a major part of our income along with our concerts. In those days, you did live radio broadcasts all the time. We were on a 50,000-watt station in Shreveport, Louisiana. Mr. Stamps then sent us to Iowa, and we moved to Iowa, where we were on a radio station 3 times daily.
The popularity of the Blackwood Brothers soared. By 1941, they left the Stamps Baxter Company and went out on their own. Radio had been a key ingredient to their success. The history of Southern gospel music will continue in a moment. We now return to the history of Southern gospel music here on TNN. As radio grew in popularity, other gospel groups came to national prominence. One family group, the Carter family, became known as the Chuck Wagon Gang.
The family was poor. They were migrant farm workers. They would work the cotton fields of Texas for part of the year, and then they would travel up into Kansas and work in the wheat fields. Living in migrant camps. After the workday was over, they'd get together and they would play and sing, and they became known by some of the other workers. And the story is that one day, one of the other workers said to Dad Carter, you ought to be singing on radio. You guys are good enough to sing on radio. They went to the radio station in Lubbock, Texas, and they literally walked in the door and asked for an audition. Did the audition, the guy hired them, and they began to sing. Within a year, they were so popular that Dad Carter loaded the family up and they drove to Fort Worth and they auditioned for a 50,000-watt station there, and they got the job. They sang for 15 years at the Fort Worth station.
Instead of going by their old name, the Carter Quartet, they agreed to change their name to the Chuck Wagon Gang at the request of the radio show's sponsor, Bewley Mills. Their gospel songs were so popular that by 1940, the Chuck Wagon Gang exclusively sang gospel music.
Moses stood on holy ground, God from God descended down, set the roadside bush on fire,
The bush on fire, and 'twas
then the Lord did there explain, through his servants should remain all the echoes from the bush on fire.
In those days, radio was largely a live medium. Rather than play records, radio stations paid musicians to play live.
Radio was always our outlet to the people, to the public. And it was great because we did 3 live shows a day. And we sang to farmers. And I've been told many times that people milk their cows to us every morning. And because WOW was reached out, I don't even know now exactly how far, but a long ways. And then like I said, we could still just announce where we were going to be. And we filled barns, we sang in barns, we sang in cornfields, we sang for corn husking contests, we sang for watermelon seed spitting contests. And I mean, they would come by the acres.
Another group that dominated the airwaves was the Harmoniers Quartet, formed in the mid-40s in Knoxville, Tennessee. In addition to singing on the radio, the Harmoniers were one of the first groups to travel extensively, reportedly making some 3,500 live local appearances in their first decade together. Bob Cruz joined the Harmoniers in 1947.
Quite often, see, we'd be here tonight and 500 miles down the road tomorrow night, a lot of times, or further. And getting there and a lot of times we'd have to dress backstage or someplace. That was the hard part to me, having to run in and dress and run right out on stage.
Well, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Every day I'll let my little light shine. Jesus gave me the light, I'm gonna let it shine. Jesus gave me the light, I'm gonna let it shine. Jesus gave me the light, I'm gonna let it shine. Every day I'll let my little light shine. On Monday, gave me the gift of love. It came from above. Told me to have more faith. Gave me a little more grace. Told me to watch and pray. Told me just what to say. Gave me power divine to let my little light shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Well, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Every day I'll let my little light shine.
The Lefevres were a family group formed in 1921, made up of Urias Lefevre, his brother Alphys, and their sister Maudie May. Eva May Lefevre joined her husband Urias full-time in 1934. A minister's daughter, she first started playing the piano at the age of 4.
It's a way of making people forget their problems and their troubles and their heartaches for a little bit. You know, if you go to someplace one night and you sing 4 hours, the words of our music are very uplifting, and they're real, I think. And I just love it. It's all I've ever done in my life.
Strong spiritual and religious feelings are the well from which gospel music is drawn. The ones who sometimes help others to drink from the well are the songwriters.
Some glad morning when this life is over, fly away, fly away to the home on the celestial shore. I'll fly away, fly away, fly away.
I'll Fly Away, written in 1932, is still being sung today. It's been recorded more than 500 times, and it's perhaps the best known of the more than 800 songs written by one of the great gospel songwriters of all time, Albert E. Brumley.
He was raised on a sharecropper's cotton farm, and that's where the song I'll Fly Away comes from, because he said, I want to fly away from here.
Brumley started out as a staff writer. Later, after years as an independent songwriter, Brumley bought the Hartford Music Company, in the process regaining ownership of his early songs. A quiet man who preferred a life in the country, Brumley was rarely interviewed.
song has got to say something all the way through. If you get weak in one line and strong in another one, why, it doesn't seem to do it. It's got to portray a story and have a melody that will carry the message.
Unlike Brumley, songwriter Leroy Abernathy also had a career as a promoter, a performer, and a voice teacher. Abernathy's most famous composition was a gospel song set to a modern rhythm. It was originally called Everybody's Gonna Have a Wonderful Time Up There. Abernathy said he didn't have much to do with changing the name to Gospel Boogie.
Everybody that wrote or called said that boogie number, that gospel boogie. I'd like to have that gospel boogie. So when I had the music printed, in parentheses, I had gospel boogie put on it. So they really named it. I didn't have anything to do with that talk. I just quick enough, I guess, to catch it.
The music's similarity to black jazz rhythms caused some religious leaders to object to its captivating beat, claiming it was inappropriate for a gospel song. The song was first performed by Atlanta's Homeland Harmony Quartet in 1948. Over the years, a variety of singers, including Abernathy and Hovey Lister, were members of the Homeland Harmony Quartet. And Gospel Boogie has remained a popular song for years.
Well, everybody gonna have religion in glow. Everybody gonna be singing that story. Everybody gonna have a wonderful time up there. Oh, now blow hallelujah, brother. There's a reckoning coming in the morning. Better get ready, I'm giving you the warning. Everybody gonna have a wonderful time up there. J.D. Sumner.
Everybody gonna have religion in glow. Everybody gonna be singing a story. Everybody gonna have a wonderful time up there. Well, glory, hallelujah, brother. That's a reckoning coming in the morning. Better get you ready, cause I'm giving you the warning. Everybody gonna have a wonderful time up there.
Well, everybody gonna have religion in glory. Everybody gonna be singing a story. Everybody gonna have a wonderful time up there. Hallelujah, brother. That's a reckoning a child. Better get ready, I'm a great one. Everybody gonna have a wonderful time up there. We'll have a wonderful time up
there. Gospel music continued to grow and change along with America in the booming post-World War II years. The history of Southern gospel music will continue in a moment here on TNN. By 1946, after World War II, America entered a period of unprecedented growth and prosperity. Gospel music was ready to take advantage of the dynamic radio market and the wide availability of records. In Atlanta, Georgia, a young musician formed a group that had a distinctive sound and a unique, confident style. The group was firmly rooted in the gospel quartet tradition, but added a new degree of polish and showmanship not yet seen. Their leader was Hovey Lister, and his group was the Statesmen.
Feeling, how about it?
I've got a newborn feeling welling in my heart today, because the love of Jesus came into my heart this day. I never realized that I had lost my way until the love of Jesus was to send away. I've got a newborn feeling in my heart today.
I've found very few people who do not love gospel music. We have, in my experience over the years, we have been on programs with all kind of different music, country, pop, jazz, everything else. Walk out and do a spiritual or a gospel song with 4 guys that are dressed sharp, that know how to sing together on pitch with each other, and you'll steal the show every time.
Good on the glory and left me here. Yeah, well, man, yeah. My feet get cold, eyes are shut, body been chilled by the hand of death. Tongue glued to the roof of my mouth, hands laid folded across for bread. Don't have to worry about the way I fare. God Almighty done told me that it be right now.
We just sing because we love to sing. There's no quartet ever been in existence that had the desire to sing as the Statesmen did. We enjoyed each other's singing.
Oh, get away, black coat, chili nose, one across the way to see my Lord, say get away. Oh, get away, black coat, chili nose, one across the way to see my
The Sunshine Boys, like the Statesmen, had no real master plan beyond the desire to sing. They formed their group in 1943, and after the war, headed west.
We went to California in late 45. Why? I have no idea. We just decided we'd go out there and see if that was, it just seemed like the thing to do at that time. For some reason, we wanted to make some of those old Western movies. So we went out there, and as luck would have it, we happened to hit it at the right time. And Eddie Dean was just getting ready to do a series with PRC, and he was looking for a group. And we happened to be that group, and we went to work with him, and we did, I think, 10 or 11 movies.
In 1949, J.D. Sumner joined the Sunshine Boys as a bass singer. When he got to Hollywood, he learned an important lesson about image and the impression that clothes sometimes make.
They had nothing to fit me, so they had to get brand new clothes for me. And they got me a pretty cowboy hat. I had a handkerchief up here, and brand new shirt, boots. Man, I looked good. So I come on the set. Well, the director said, "Who in the H do you think you are? You are not Charles Starrett." You know, he said, "Come here." He got my hat down and threw it in the ground and stomped it and rubbed his feet and tucked my shirt and tore it. I looked pretty bad when I got through.
They managed to work gospel songs into their Hollywood Western movies and then made a significant breakthrough for gospel music.
In 1951, we recorded a song with Red Foley. Sunshine Boys and Red Foley recorded Peace in the Valley. That was the first gospel record that ever topped 1 million. In fact, it's still selling today.
While the movies helped spread the music, the quartets themselves still traveled the old-fashioned way, by car. The history of Southern gospel music will continue in a moment. We now return to the history of Southern gospel music here on TNN. Audiences loved hearing gospel on the radio and seeing it in movies, but nothing beat a live performance. Throughout the 40s and 50s, gospel groups traveled from performance to performance by automobile. It was important to make the car last as long as possible. Money wasn't always readily available for repairs.
We had a 47 Cadillac, 9-passenger. We were going along, and J.D. was driving, and the wheel bearing was going out in the back, and it was going grinding like that, see. I said, J.D., you might better stop. He said, I said, it'd be okay. So he kept driving.
He said, don't stop, just keep driving, maybe to catch on fire. Burn up and we'll collect the insurance on it. So I drove and wah.
So we got into Lewistown. There's an all-night service station there. J.D. pulled right up in the service station, right in front of the gas pumps. We all got out, and he went around to the back to look up under it, just see what was happening. We knew it was a wheel bearing, but you couldn't tell which one it was.
So I pulled into the filling station, and just time I stopped, a blaze. It did catch on fire.
It started burning right under the gas tank. The guy from the service station came running out there. And he said, I'll call the fire department. J.D. says, mind your own business. It's insured. And it was wore out anyway.
But what I didn't know, right across the street was the state's school for firemen. They had 400 firemen right across the street. And here they come with them hose and completely ruined the car. Of course, they saved it, which was bad luck.
And then, of course, all we could do was drive it the way it was. For about 2 months after that, had a great big hole burned in the back seat. And that burnt cotton didn't smell too well for a couple of months after that.
The Lord, I think, sort of punished us for trying to collect insurance on wheelbarrows.
Being on the road didn't always mean being ready for a fire drill. However, sometimes it was just a long trip.
We traveled in an automobile, 5 guys, 5 suitcases, all of our clothing, our sound system, our records, whatever we had, songbooks. We didn't have sheet music then. Records were these old 78s, you know. And you think the car wasn't full. No air conditioning. Oh, it was fun. You drive all day with the windows down, and when you get there, you're beat to death. But you got to perform. That was the fun part. That was the part that the people didn't get to enjoy.
One part people did enjoy was a brand new monthly radio show put together by promoter Wally Fowler.
Wally Fowler's first all-night sing, as he called it, was in 1948 at the old Ryman Auditorium in Nashville, Tennessee. And it was broadcast on WSM from 11 to 12 that night. And we were there for that very first one. And after that was there for many, many other of Wally Fowler's sings.
The Sings were an unbridled success.
From there, he took the concept of the all-night sing and spread it throughout most of the major urban centers of the South. He'd have all-night sings in Atlanta and all-night sings in Birmingham and Memphis and other places.
All the top groups participated in the all-night sings as the monthly broadcast became known. And for a while, it was a focal point of Southern gospel music. The performers loved Wally Fowler because he was helping to spread their music.
I think he did a lot of good for the quartets, all the gospel groups, and because he had a workplace for them. He created demand for their service.
One group owes more than exposure to Wally Fowler. Originally called the Gospel Melody, Fowler renamed them on his show.
He liked us, but he didn't like our name. He thought that there was so many melodies and names like that. He says not a distinctive enough name. And he started putting on posters, big posters, billboards, the Boys from Florida. We just decided that maybe the Florida Boys would be a better name, and we changed it.
Fowler's talents and instincts extended beyond picking names for gospel quartets. He was a songwriter, and in 1945, Fowler created and managed the Oak Ridge Quartet, which later became the Oak Ridge Boys. The Oaks remained a purely gospel group until 1977, before switching to secular music. 2 of the groups that worked together on Fowler's show teamed up to become, for a time, the dominant force in modern gospel music. The history of Southern gospel music will continue in a moment. Return here to the history of Southern gospel music here on TNN. Wally Fowler's all-night sings became a fixture of the national gospel radio scene. Many of the groups that participated grew enormously in popularity. The Statesmen and the Blackwood Brothers teamed up.
We ourselves rented an auditorium in Birmingham, Alabama in 1952 to try it out. It was sold out. So we said, okay, the idea works. So from there on, we worked as a gospel quartet team for about 15 years. And when a promoter wanted one, he got to take both. And so it proved very, very successful, at least 10 years.
Swing low, sweet chariot,
ride. Don't you swing down, sweet chariot, stop and let me ride. Swing down, chariot, stop and let me ride. Rock me, Lord, calm and easy. I got a pull on me, hold the sight. Why don't you swing down, sweet chariot, stop and...
In 1954, the Blackwood brothers reached a pinnacle when they won the Arthur Godfrey Talent Search on nationwide television. By this time, they had moved up from traveling in cars to private airplanes. Quartet members R.W. Blackwood and Bill Lyles were the pilot and co-pilot. But less than 3 weeks after their Arthur Godfrey appearance, tragedy struck.
Just before dusk, dark, my nephew, the pilot, said he believed he'd like to take the plane up one time before it got dark to see how much room he had on takeoff after dark. So he did, and it was on an attempt to land the plane that it crashed and burned. I was watching it along with other members of my quartet and Jake Hess and members of the Statesmen. We all started running toward it before it even hit the ground, but it went up in flames immediately.
At first, James Blackwood said he would never sing again, but the outcry from the fans was too strong, and he reformed the group, adding another nephew, Cecil Blackwood, and J.D. Sumner from the Sunshine Boys, who replaced Bill Lyles on bass.
Those hands still give me mercy, though I'm wrong as wrong can be. If they really gave me justice, I'd be lost on homeless sea.
With the tragedy behind them, the Blackwood brothers continued to grow in popularity, returning to the Arthur Godfrey Show to win a second time. Planes were out. Cars were too small. J.D. came up with a perfect solution, the bus. Before country, before rock and roll, the Blackwood brothers had the first custom bus for traveling entertainers. Soon, other groups followed suit.
Praise God for the buses. And I mean that. I mean, when I first traveled, I came to California 50 years ago in a car with 5 grown men in a car. I mean, the greatest thing that happened to quartet music is buses and interstate system. Riding on those 2-lane highways in the 40s and 50s. And we all had early morning radio programs. I mean, you usually worked out about 200 miles away from, like in Dallas, we worked a couple of 100 miles and then back home that night. And we carried our sound system in little old 2 speakers and a Bogan amp inside those speakers and carried in. When you see today's sound unloaded off of great big semi-trucks, I don't know how the people ever heard us. In fact, I sang a few programs without microphone, and that was not easy.
So many people wanted to hear the sounds of Southern gospel music that by 1957 the groups gathered for a gospel music camp meeting. They called it the National Quartet Convention and held it in Memphis, Tennessee.
Ladies and gentlemen, let us bow our heads in prayer. Oh God, we thank you tonight for the many hours of work, of planning and of study that the Blackwood brothers have done. Bless each one that shall sing, each person that has come a distance. And may, when this night has been finished, may we say that it was good to have been here, because truly the Spirit of God was felt. Amen.
The first one was, in fact, we didn't know what it was going to be like, you know. We just knew we was all going to get together, and every group who traveled back in those days were the full-time groups. It was a great get-together, you know. And we said, we need to do this again, you know.
Today, groups like the Martins, Brian Free and Assurance, the Isaacs, the Hoppers, and others have taken the traditions of the past and brought them into the present. And although some of the sounds have changed, the message has remained the same. In the history of Southern gospel music.
On Calvary, for you and me, his hands were nailed. God, his side was real.
You're watching just part of